Sure. Here's a haunting and atmospheric short story titled The Silent Horns of Ashcombe Hill, a tale of lost souls and the hunts that never stop. The Silent Horns of Ashcombe Hill. A tale of lost souls and the hunts that never stop. Ashcombe Hill rose like a spine through the moors, its silhouette forever etched against a weeping sky. Locals avoided it, even on the brightest days. Even birds dared not nest in its thorn-wrapped trees. To them, Ashcombe was a place where the world thinned, where the dead whispered louder than the wind, and the sound of horns could be heard, though no lips had blown them in over 200 years. The last known hunt of Ashcombe Hill rode out on a frost-bitten morning in 1823. Lord Heronwell, the Earl of Dunley, led his party through fog and bracken, hounds straining against leashes and stallions snorting mist. They pursued no fox that day, though they claimed they did. Some whispered it was a man they hunted, others said it was something older. None of the 20 riders returned. For months, searchers combed the hill, finding only shredded red hunting coats and hoofprints that circled endlessly in patterns too precise for the living. Eventually, the hill was declared cursed, and Ashcombe Lodge, Heronwell's hunting estate, was left to rot into the earth. Yet still, on certain nights, the horns echo, not loud, but clear, distant brassy notes trembling in the valley fog. The villagers of Elders Reach hear them in their dreams or while staring too long into the fire. They say the riders are still hunting, trapped between worlds, seeking a quarry they cannot catch, or a home they cannot return to. And every so often, someone disappears. It's always someone who heard the horns and went looking, a hiker with too much curiosity, a child drawn by something beautiful only they could hear. Once, a paranormal investigator from the city who laughed at the ghost stories before heading up the ridge with his recording gear. He laughed less when they found his equipment weeks later, soaked in mud and blood. The footage was useless, just static. But the audio was different. A horn, then hoofbeats, then screaming. Old Thomas Greaves, the last living relative of Lord Heronwell, still tends the graveyard at the foot of Ashcombe Hill. He walks with a limp, the price of trying to climb the hill when he was a boy. He speaks little, but once told a traveler, they ride in circles, you see, always chasing the past. The hill won't let them leave, and it won't let them rest. When asked why the horns are silent to most ears, Greaves simply said, they're not silent, you just haven't been chosen. One day, the horns will call your name, and when they do, the hunt will come. Would you like an illustrated version or a different style, like Gothic horror or modern suspense? Certainly. Here's the next part of The Silent Horns of Ashcombe Hill, a tale of lost souls and the hunts that never stop. Part 2, The Chosen. Eleanor Brant didn't believe in ghosts. She believed in patterns, data, and the comforting coldness of scientific fact. As a folklorist and audio researcher for the University of Exeter, her job was to chase the truth behind myths, and Ashcombe Hill was her next target. She arrived in Elders Reach on a dull October morning, with a rain-drenched coat and a digital recorder slung over her shoulder. The locals met her with tight lips and eyes that refused to linger. When she asked about the hill, they gave her the same answer, again and again. Don't go up after dark. Of course, she did. Eleanor made her camp near the ruins of Ashcombe Lodge. Moss-covered stones jutted from the earth like crooked teeth, and the skeletal outline of the old hunting estate whispered of grandeur long devoured by time. She set up her equipment with meticulous care: audio monitors, thermal scanners, motion triggers. All she needed was a sound. Just once. One horn, one hoofbeat. That first night, the hill was silent. The second night, something triggered the thermal camera, but there was nothing there. On the third night, Eleanor heard it. It came just before midnight, a faint, low note like breath through an ancient horn, echoing across the moorland. Then another, a rhythm, a call. Her recorder caught everything. She grinned in the dark, heart hammering in triumph. And then, the horses came. She didn't see them, not at first, but she felt them. The ground vibrated, branches snapped in distant patterns. She stood by her tent, breath visible, eyes wide. Then they appeared. Figures on horseback, red coats streaked with rot, faces obscured by fog and shadow. They rode silently at first, gliding rather than galloping, as if memory moved them more than muscle. 20 of them, just as the story said. One rider turned his head, and Eleanor saw what no one was meant to see. There were no eyes, only black pits, and within them, wind. Endless, howling wind. They circled once, then twice, then stopped. The lead rider lifted his horn. He blew. The sound pierced Eleanor's ears like ice water in her skull. She dropped to her knees, screaming, but she made no sound. Her voice had vanished. Her mind recoiled, and then, they charged. Shall I continue with what happens when Eleanor is taken into the hunt, or does she escape? Absolutely. Here's the next part of The Silent Horns of Ashcombe Hill, a tale of lost souls and the hunts that never stop. Part 3, The Hunt. They didn't trample her. They passed through her, cold as a grave's breath, sharp as shattered glass in the blood. Eleanor collapsed, her limbs numb, her vision flickering like dying candlelight. The hill spun around her, darker than night, stranger than dreams. When she woke, it was not morning. There was no sky above her, only a grey dome of churning mist. The ruins of Ashcombe Lodge were gone, replaced by the ghost of a forest, twisted and pale, its trees frozen mid-scream. She was still on the hill, yet not. The world was tilted, the rules rewritten. And she was not alone. Other figures were there, some standing dazed, some weeping, others stumbling in silence. A young girl in a yellow raincoat clutched a stuffed rabbit. An old man with recording equipment looked up, eyes hollow. The city investigator from years ago. All of them bore the same mark on their neck, a faint black ring like a collar, just beneath the skin. Eleanor touched her throat and felt it pulsing. The horn blew again. It came from everywhere and nowhere, vibrating in her bones. The crowd turned toward it, compelled. A path opened in the mists, winding through trees that weren't there before. Hoofbeats thundered in the distance. The hunt was beginning again. And this time, they would be the quarry. Run, the old man whispered. You have to run, or ride. What? Eleanor asked, but her voice was just breath. He pointed at the black horse now standing silently beside her, its eyes white as snow. They always give you a chance. One ride, one hunt. If you last till dawn, you get to go back. She climbed on, barely able to hold the reins. Around her, the others mounted as well. Some sobbed, some whispered prayers, one simply laughed. The horn screamed once more. And then the hunt came. Red-coated riders burst through the trees like fire through dry wood. Horns screaming, hounds barking with jaws that glowed like coals. The chased became the chase. Eleanor spurred her horse and flew into the mist, heart slamming, vision narrowing, her mind repeating the only thing she now believed. If she fell, she would never rise again. Ashcombe Hill wanted her soul, and it would ride her down unless she proved herself worthy of escape. Would you like to continue into Part 4, where we explore whether Eleanor finds a way out, or becomes part of the eternal hunt herself? Absolutely. Here's Part 4 of The Silent Horns of Ashcombe Hill, a tale of lost souls and the hunts that never stop. Part 4, The Turning. The landscape was a maze of shifting trees and endless fog, each hoofbeat swallowed by silence as soon as it fell. Eleanor clung to the reins, ducking low as branches snatched at her like bony hands. Behind her came the thunder, hoof and horn, growling hounds, and the blood-freezing cries of the huntsman. A rider to her left screamed as a shadow leapt from the fog and dragged him from his saddle. No one stopped. No one ever stopped. Just until dawn, she reminded herself. Make it until dawn. But time meant nothing here. The sky never changed. The sun never rose. Ahead, she saw something strange, a standing stone circle half sunken into the moss, its surface etched with runes that pulsed a faint, cold blue. As she passed through it, everything went silent, even the horn. The mist thinned. Eleanor found herself riding beside someone. Not a ghost, not a soul, a man, young, clean-faced, in riding gear that shimmered like water. You're close, he said, not looking at her. Few make it this far. Who are you? Eleanor asked. I was the first, he said. The quarry, the mistake. They weren't supposed to hunt me, but they did. I ran, I died, and I turned. He glanced at her now, eyes like burning frost. You can turn too. That's the trick. You don't escape the hunt by outrunning it. You escape by becoming part of it. No, Eleanor whispered. I won't hunt for them. He only shrugged. You will. When the horn calls you next time, you won't run. You'll ride with them. That's the mercy Ashcombe gives. The horn blew again, but now, Eleanor felt it within her, vibrating her chest, her blood. Her horse stopped, as if waiting for her to decide. In the distance, she saw a break in the fog, a gate of woven branches, glowing faintly gold. An exit. A choice. She could feel the others behind her, those who turned, and those who never did. The hunt slowed, circling her like a question. Run, or ride. Eleanor stared into the fog, the gate of light, and the red riders. Then, slowly, she turned her horse and charged back toward the hunt. Would you like the final part, where we discover what Eleanor truly becomes in the legend of Ashcombe Hill? Here is the final part of The Silent Horns of Ashcombe Hill, a tale of lost souls and the hunts that never stop. Part 5, The Legend Remade. Eleanor's horse tore through the mists like a creature born of storm, her breath catching fire in her lungs. She didn't know why she turned, only that something deep within her had shifted, a cold clarity like a blade unsheathed. She wasn't prey anymore. The riders sensed the change. They slowed, turned, watched. The lead huntsman, the one with the horn of bone and shadow, lowered it from his lips as she approached. His mount, massive and coal-black, stamped the earth but did not charge. The red of his coat shimmered now, embroidered not with thread but veins of ashen gold. He stared at Eleanor. And then he offered her the horn. No words, just a gesture. She reached for it. It burned her skin, but she didn't flinch. She lifted the horn and blew. The sound that came forth was not a scream, not a cry. It was a summons, the deep, resonant command that shivered through the fog and the bones of the hill itself. The hunt answered. The riders fell in behind her. She didn't become one of them. She became something above them. The new mistress of the hill. These days, they say the horns on Ashcombe Hill sound different. Not mournful, but sharper, less like memory, more like a warning. The riders still come, but they ride in tighter formation now. They hunt with purpose, and at their front is a figure not born of centuries past, but of this century. Eleanor Brandt's name is spoken in whispers in elders' reach. Her recordings were found, but no one could explain them. Her tent remained, perfectly intact, her body never found. Old Thomas Greaves heard the horn one night last spring. He wept as he told the vicar, "It's her now. She's leading them, not lost, just changed." And every so often, a soul is returned. Shaking, broken, but alive. She spares the ones who run well, the ones who don't, they ride forever. Because the hunt never ends. Only evolves. Would you like a compiled version of the full story in one document or formatted as a printable PDF or ebook? Excellent, here's a postscript and epilogue to The Silent Horns of Ashcombe Hill, a tale of lost souls and the hunts that never stop. Postscript, the archivist's note. In 2024, the sealed field journal of Eleanor Brandt was anonymously mailed to the folklore department at the University of Exeter. It was wrapped in oilskin, faintly damp, and sealed with an unmarked wax crest, a coiled horn, encircled by brambles. Inside were only 4 entries. The final one read, "They don't chase because they must. They chase because they were chased. Pain passed down like a ritual. The hunt is not punishment, it's memory. And now, it remembers me." At the back of the journal was a hand-drawn map of Ashcombe Hill. Marked in red ink, the gate. Marked in black, where I turned. No one knows who sent it. No one can find the place marked on the map. Epilogue, the hill waits. A boy wandered too close to the foot of Ashcombe Hill last month. Locals say he came running back wide-eyed and silent, clutching a broken rabbit toy. His mother says he didn't take it with him. She's sure of it. At night now, he draws circles on the floor in red crayon, twisted paths, spirals that don't end. When asked what he's doing, he simply says, "Practicing." Would you like me to prepare a stylized digital version of the complete story, something fit for publication or sharing? Perfect. Here is a final coda to The Silent Horns of Ashcombe Hill, a tale of lost souls and the hunts that never stop, a closing whisper from the hill itself. Final coda, the horn will call again. Some nights, if the fog is right and the wind shifts just so, you can hear the hunt passing through the edges of your dreams, hoofbeats pacing behind your thoughts. A soft note from a horn, not loud, but unmistakable. That's not memory. That's invitation. Eleanor rides still, not as a ghost, nor a prisoner, but as a force older than fear, born anew in flesh and defiance. She wears no crown, but her name is spoken like one. The hill is hers now, its curse shaped into order, a hierarchy of mercy and judgment. The hunt is still cruel, but now it has rules. And if the horn calls you, if you dream of horses galloping through mist, or awaken with mud on your feet, know this. You've already been marked. Run if you must. Ride if you dare. But never stand still. Because the hunt never stops. Not for you. Not for anyone. Not anymore. If you'd like, I can now compile the entire story with formatting, chapter headings, and atmospheric visuals into an ebook, printable PDF, or a web page format. Would you prefer one of those? You've reached the natural end of the Silent Horns of Ashcombe Hill, but if you'd like the story to continue, we can explore new arcs or connected tales within this haunted universe. Here are some options for what comes next. 1. The Hollow Riders. A standalone sequel following a new protagonist marked by the hunt, who begins to uncover that Ashcombe Hill is only one of several such cursed places across Europe, and Eleanor may be rallying something greater than a hunt, an army of the forgotten. 2. The Child Who Drew Circles. Following the boy from the epilogue, years later, as he comes of age, the patterns he draws begin to open things. The hunt wants him, but he might be destined to undo the cycle entirely. 3. Ashcombe, The First Hunt. A prequel set in 1823, detailing the original riders, Lord Harrenwell's fatal mistake, and the secret horror they unleashed during that final doomed hunt. 4. The Horn Calls East. Set in modern-day Eastern Europe, where a researcher finds Eleanor's map duplicated in an old monastery's library, with a new symbol burned beside it, second gate, open. Would you like to pick one of these to continue, or would you prefer I create something completely new in the same world? Let's continue with The Child Who Drew Circles, a direct continuation and spiritual sequel to The Silent Horns of Ashcombe Hill. The Child Who Drew Circles. A Tale of the Second Marked. Chapter 1, Inheritor. They called him quiet. They should have called him watchful. Miles Kendrick was 7 when he came back from Ashcombe Hill holding a stuffed rabbit that wasn't his. Since then, he'd spoken barely a dozen words, and only ever in his sleep. He drew constantly, circles within circles, perfect spirals, strange symbols that pulsed faintly when left in moonlight. His teachers worried. His mother cried often, though she didn't know why. By 13, he had outgrown the drawings. Now, he carved. He carved the same shapes into wood, stone, school desks, the underside of his bed frame, always the same spiral, one loop tightening into another. His hands moved like he wasn't guiding them, like someone else was. He never remembered doing it. Then, one October night, the horn called again. Not from the hill, not in the distance, but under his floorboards. He rose from bed, barefoot, and pulled the carpet back. Beneath it was the first carving he'd ever made, the spiral. But now it was glowing, slowly turning. Beneath it, fog. It wasn't possible. He stepped forward, the floor gave. And he fell, through the spiral, through wood and earth and into a place that smelled like peat smoke and memory. A place where riders paced just beyond vision, and the wind carried words in a woman's voice. He's the second. He remembers what I was. He will choose what we become. Would you like to keep following Miles deeper into this new version of the hunt, and see what Eleanor has become in his eyes? Certainly. Here's the next part of The Child Who Drew Circles. Chapter 2, The Voice Beneath the Fog. Miles stood in a forest that was both old and unfinished, trees that hadn't decided whether they were real or remembered. The ground beneath him pulsed faintly, and though the air smelled of moss and smoke, it didn't move, not unless he moved first. He wasn't alone. Shapes drifted in the fog, some large and quiet, like watching animals, others quick and sharp, like they were made of whisper and instinct, but none came close. Except for her. A figure approached on foot, cloaked in ash gray, her face half covered, but her presence unmistakable. "Hello, Miles," the woman said softly. He stared. She was familiar, somehow, not in the way people usually are, but in the way that you remember a dream you forgot you had. He tried to speak, but no words came. You don't have to talk, she said. I've heard your dreams. She crouched beside him, brushing her fingers through the air like stirring water. Where she touched, spirals bloomed in the fog. I was the first to turn willingly, she said. Now the hunt rides with restraint, with purpose, because of choice. You've felt it too, haven't you? The pattern in your hands, the circles, the longing to go somewhere you've never seen but always known. He nodded. Eleanor smiled, not with warmth, but with recognition. You're not prey. You're not a huntsman either. You're the next shape, the one after the spiral. She rose and pointed into the mist. And there, just faintly, Miles saw a gate. Not twisted branches like before. This one was made of light, pulsing, breathing. A second gate has opened, Eleanor said. Not made by us, not of the hunt. Miles stepped toward it. The fog behind him howled. He turned, and the riders had come. Not hunting, not chasing, watching, waiting. One of them reached out and placed something in his hand, the rabbit, the same toy from years ago. It blinked. Would you like to continue into Chapter 3, where Miles steps through the second gate and sees what lies beyond the hunt? Here is Chapter 3 of The Child Who Drew Circles. Chapter 3, Beyond the Gate. Miles held the rabbit, now no longer a toy but something alive, its eyes too large, its fur too soft, and yet, its presence undeniable. He could feel it pulsing in his palm, not like a heartbeat, but a presence. It was waiting for something, for him. The riders were silent, their horses restless but not threatening. The fog seemed to part for them, bending to their will, a natural part of the landscape. Eleanor, standing to one side, gestured toward the gate. You're the bridge, Miles. You are the one who will choose which way we go. He looked at her, confused. What do you mean? The second gate wasn't meant to be opened by anyone alive, she said, her voice soft, like a shadow passing through the mist. But you've always known it was there. You've seen the spiral, the pattern. That's why you came back. That's why you fell through the floor. And now, you'll make the decision we all missed. Miles stepped closer to the gate, feeling its heat against his skin. It was unlike anything he'd felt before, a strange pull, like gravity but not. What happens if I choose the wrong way? He asked, his voice trembling. Eleanor's eyes darkened. There's no wrong way, only different ways. The hunt continues, but you can change it. You can change everything. The riders began to move, encircling the gate. Their faces were obscured by their hoods, but Miles could sense their eyes on him, pressing. Their silent challenge was a weight on his shoulders. He wasn't sure if they were waiting for him to choose or to fail. He stepped forward, the rabbit still in his hand, and reached toward the gate. The moment his fingers touched the light, everything around him shifted. The fog twisted and dissolved into beams of white and silver, and the ground beneath his feet transformed into a great field, one that stretched out infinitely, blanketed in tall grass that swayed without wind. The sky above him was an endless twilight, neither day nor night, but something in between. He had crossed. And with it, the riders disappeared. The mist vanished, Eleanor's figure faded into nothingness, and in its place stood something darker, more ancient. A new figure. A woman, tall, with dark hair flowing like ink, wearing an intricate crown of woven thorns and gold. Her eyes gleamed with a knowing darkness. You are the one, she said, her voice a cold, ancient whisper. You've opened the gate. You've crossed through. Now, you must decide, will you be the new keeper of the hunt, or will you close the gate forever, and end the cycle? Miles could feel it deep within him, like a pulse in his chest. He was no longer just a boy. He had become something far greater, something destined to stand at the crossroads of the hunt. But what exactly was he supposed to become? Before he could answer, the figure extended her hand. The choice is yours, Miles Kendrick. Choose wisely, for this world is never the same once the hunt has passed through. Would you like to explore Miles's decision, whether he chooses to close the gate, continue the hunt, or something entirely unexpected? Here's Chapter 4 of The Child Who Drew Circles. Chapter 4, The Keeper's Choice. Miles stood before the figure, heart racing. Her eyes gleamed with a depth that seemed to pull at the very fabric of his thoughts, and her hand, outstretched, was like a tether to everything he didn't understand. The air between them buzzed with an ancient power, as if the world itself was waiting for his decision. The ground beneath him rippled like water, and the faint sound of a horn carried on the wind, low, mournful, yet somehow urgent. The hunt was still there, just beyond the veil of reality, pushing against the boundaries of this place. He could feel it, like the pulse of the earth, a constant, driving rhythm. "Why me?" Miles whispered, his voice barely audible in the thick air. The woman tilted her head, her crown glinting in the fading light. "You have always been the one, Miles, the second mark, the one who could see the spiral and step into it, the one who could cross the line between worlds without being consumed by it." He swallowed hard, the weight of her words sinking into his chest like a stone. He had thought he was just a child, a boy who had wandered too close to the mysteries of the hill. But now, standing before this strange, timeless figure, he realized that he had always been chosen. He had been marked long before he knew it, and the patterns in his hands, the circles, the spirals, were more than just a quirk of his mind. They were part of something greater. The woman's smile deepened, but it wasn't a smile of comfort. It was the smile of someone who knew the consequences of choice, someone who understood the price of power. "You can close the gate, Miles. You can end the hunt, and free all those who are trapped in its endless cycle. But know this, the hunt is more than just a chase. It is the memory of a world that must always be remembered. If you close the gate, you will erase that memory. The lost souls, the riders, they will be gone forever." Her gaze softened, but only for a moment. "Or, you can choose to become the keeper. You will wield the horn, you will shape the hunt, guide it, and ensure that it continues. The souls will never be free, but they will never be lost. They will serve, they will hunt, and you will lead them." Miles felt the weight of her words pressing against his chest, filling him with a heaviness he could hardly comprehend. He turned, glancing behind him at the fading outline of the gate, and beyond it, the world he had known, the life he had left behind. The rabbit, still in his hand, twitched as if alive. His fingers tightened around it, and for a moment, he thought he felt a pulse in its tiny heart. It was a symbol of innocence, of beginnings, but it was also a symbol of choice. The same choice he now faced. The hunt, the riders, the figures who had once been lost souls, they were still out there, waiting. But if he became the keeper, could he truly control it? Could he bear the weight of guiding them? Or would he be consumed by the same hunger that had driven the riders for centuries? He turned back to the woman. "What happens to me if I choose to close the gate?" She regarded him with cold, ancient eyes. "You will cease to exist in this place. You will never return to the world you once knew. You will be forgotten. But so will the hunt." Miles clenched his fists, feeling the power thrumming beneath his skin. He could end it all. He could erase it. The riders, the souls, the endless chase, they would be gone. Forever. But the thought of the hunt never being remembered, never continuing, it unnerved him. There was something in the very fabric of it, something deep in the earth that he could not explain, that told him the hunt was necessary. It was part of something larger than him, larger than any of them. "Can I change the rules?" he asked, his voice suddenly steady. The woman's lips parted in what could have been a smile or a grimace. "You are the second, Miles, the one who could reshape the spiral, the one who could choose the path. But remember, even the keeper cannot escape the price of their own choice." She stepped back, vanishing into the mist, leaving him standing alone before the gate. The decision weighed on him, pulling at his very soul. The horn of the hunt called again, low and persistent, as if it could hear his indecision. The choice. Miles knew that if he chose to remain, if he chose the hunt, he would forever be marked as its new keeper. He would guide it, shape it, become both leader and prisoner. But he would also protect it, perhaps even find a way to make it something other than the endless, consuming force it had been. But if he chose to close the gate, the world he knew would be forever lost to him. He would fade, forgotten by all. The hunt would cease to exist, and the souls who had ridden its paths would never find peace. His fingers tightened around the rabbit. The horn called again. "Would you like to explore Miles's final decision? Or would you prefer a different outcome, where he chooses something unexpected?"